Hello, I'm Chris from Userdoc, and in this video, I want to take you through Userdoc's code import feature, where we can take existing software source code and reverse engineer it into detailed documentation. Let's have a look how it works. Within Userdoc, we can create a new project type, which is translating source code into documentation. Now, the first question in this flow, it's just asking us for a name of the project. So this is an online voting system that I'm going to use as an example. It's an old legacy ASP.NET product, which allows like election voting. And in this case, it's written in ASP.NET. We're just giving a brief description here. And the next step it's asking is for the technologies that are used. So there's many technologies you can choose from. Userdoc is technology agnostic. It can be old, complex, COBOL or Fortran or new technologies. In this case, it's simply C#, ASP.NET, HTML, CSS, and Microsoft SQL Server. Now, the next question asks, do we use source control hosted repo? And do we want to integrate with that source code? At this stage, we're going to say no. We just want an estimate based on some details. It's asking us, can we estimate the size of the software? So we can. I'm going to say it's 30,000 lines of code, which is quite a small system. And it's been in development for 9 years. And we classify it as small. It's hard to classify software, but this helps with the price estimate. We're also saying it's a modular system with very few large files, because some systems have small files, not many files, but very large. We're going to say that there's no logic in the database layer, no stored procedures, and it's not a microservice architecture. These questions do have a bearing on how long and the cost and time it may take. This last point is just asking for any ad lib notes about points. And now it's going to come back with an estimate. So it's going to cost about $999 to do in Userdoc and only take a few hours or minutes. Now, manually, to reverse engineer documentation as a human, it might take 1 month or more and cost upwards of 7 to 10,000. Once we've continued, we're now starting the process of the code import. First step, we're going to connect our source code. Now you can connect to your secure repository or very securely upload a zip file. We're uploading a zip here. It's important to state that none of your code is ever sent to a publicly accessible server. We've put a lot of effort into our security and privacy. Once this zip file is uploaded securely, we continue to the next step. What's happening here is we're looking through the zip file and we're finding the relevant files for documentation building. Now, not all files are relevant, such as images and fonts. They're not important at all, or binary files. Now we see a file tree and we're tasked to select the files that are relevant. Now you can see some are already grayed out, and we can also untick files that are not relevant, such as CSS files, which are used for visual information. Fonts and images, you can't even choose them. I'm going to exclude some JavaScript file here that are vendor packages that I know are not important to our custom code. Now, lastly, I'm just going to scan through the other files. This is a small system, so it's quite easy, but people can spend many hours on this step and multiple team members can join and collaborate together. I just removed a config file and I've seen there was 35 files, now it's down to 25. So I've removed quite a lot of files. Now we're coming back with an accurate price. Where previously it was an estimate, now we know the files involved. So it's actually going to cost $499 to turn this into documentation, and it's going to take less than an hour. Now, compared to manual methods, this may take a month or more. The next question is about the user types involved in the system. So by default, there is a general user for the voting system. And I'm just going to show an example of changing its description. So they can log in and they can vote. Now, this is optional, but the more information you give it, the better. The other user type is an administrator, which does general administration of the election. Now, this system only has 2 user types, so I'll just confirm to say that all looks good and we'll continue. This next section is showing the themes involved. So our AI has actually gone through the source code and is showing the high-level concepts or themes that we've detected. So we see a theme, a description, and a concept of the sub-themes, right? So this is a bit new, but what we want a human to do is confirm these concepts if you can. So you read through them, you can edit them, you can add them or delete them, but once they're confirmed, we'll continue to the next step. The reason this confirmation is important is an AI is not perfect. We always want a human involved to just be the human in the loop and the last layer of governance across this process. This next screen shows you the features that are involved in the system. So our AI has intelligently located all the different features in this software with a unique description, which is very comprehensive, so you can understand where in the system this happens. And again, we just want a confirmation step here, so you can read through these at your own leisure. You can edit them, you can delete them, you can add them. People can spend quite a lot of time on this screen depending on the size of the system. But for this small system, the only thing I've noticed is View Candidate Details feature exists twice. So I've just removed one of them and now it all looks good. So I'm going to simply go through and make and confirm this step to say, I have checked these look perfect, let's continue to the next step. Now, lastly, our AI models are now processing your source code and creating very detailed documentation. This can take anywhere between 1 minute to 40 minutes, depending on the size of your system. But what you'll see next is highly detailed user story features and acceptance criteria. So this is the main Userdoc platform we've now created. We're going to look at the login feature. As a user, I'm going to log in so I can participate in elections and cast my vote with very detailed criteria, right? The form, the type of fields, the validations involved, if the exact messages that are shown to the end user. Now, if it's successful, they get created as a session and they're redirected to the election page. The registration screen with all the different form fields, again, their validation, right down to like the mobile phone number input validation. And if it doesn't match what they see, the options in drop-down lists. Previously, you'd have to look at the source code for this, but now you can just turn to the documentation. And there's other information too. It's not just about front-end user interface. We've gone through the entire stack of the system. We can know that this drop-down list is sourced from the database table. So it's not just about, visual aesthetics. We know what happens behind the scenes as well. So that's a really quick overview of the code import feature. But what I want to also do is show you a little bit about Userdoc platform itself. But Userdoc isn't just about reverse engineering documentation from code. It's also a fully fledged requirements management system infused with AI. So we can manage our requirements such as creating new user stories, non-functional requirements, or epics. And I'll show a quick example. So let's say we want the ability to cancel election, and administrators can do that. We can choose our user type or multiple. We'll generate a quick user story. Now we can change any of this, but I'm going to say that this looks perfect, so we'll continue. We can also generate acceptance criteria. So we can let Userdoc use your existing features and its knowledge of your system to create it, or we can add context. So I want to say that when it's cancelled, voters receive email notification. You can put as much or as little as you'd like here. And Userdoc's AI has come back and created super detailed acceptance criteria. So when you're on the edit page, it understands this information, displays a grid of all the records, shows an option to cancel. When you click the button, it prompts. You can see how detailed this is. In fact, studies have shown that it's up to 70 to 80% detailed. It puts in what we need. So it sends the email address, like we mentioned, with information about what's in the email. And it also says after it's finished, it prompts to return to the view elections screen. So it understands your existing features and can create relationships between them. We can go ahead and save this requirement, but it's not just about acceptance criteria. We can also generate very detailed test cases using AI. So I'll show you just letting Userdoc go ahead and create what it thinks are some great test cases to use. And it shows you by default, this is what it's saying. So you can, cancel the election with the confirmation prompt. You see the preconditions, the steps, and the expected results. Now, all of this was generated in a couple of seconds. So you can definitely go and change this yourself. Or as I said, you can add more context all the time. But let's say that this is done. This is our first draft of this feature. Maybe you want to add a label on it or something. We're going to save this, and it's not just locked into Userdoc. We can integrate this with our other systems. So I've connected Jira. I'm just going to synchronize that across. And almost instantly, we've now got a ticket being created over in Jira that describes the user story, the acceptance criteria, and the detailed test cases involved. Now, Userdoc is obviously the repository of information, the source of truth of what happens that's not just in the code. So we want to be able to ask questions of this. If I say, for elections, what are the source options? So I know that source is a field on the elections, but I just forget what the options are. So let's say I'm new to the project and I need to understand this. In a couple of seconds, Userdoc has come back and said the source options are BTEC, MTech, etc. And it even gives you the link to the story so you can confirm it yourself. Userdoc isn't just about requirements. It also is about other parts of to communicate your system, such as the user types and personas. So it's built out some personas, which are narrative examples. So we understand that Caleb Thornton is a voter of this system. Tells you background about him, goals, frustrations. Of course, we can edit these, we can change it with AI and everything. But the important thing is it's a one-stop repository for the information about the system. And of course, user journeys combine the two concepts. So we've got a sign up to vote journey where Caleb, this persona, he gets told about this system by a friend. He visits the homepage, he registers, and you can see here it's got a link to the register feature. I can click that. I can be reminded what this register feature works. And on the register feature, it tells us what journeys it's related to. So I've created an interactive map between features and how it actually works. So this journey completes all the way to voting in the election. And of course, we've used AI to generate this. You can make changes, you can make your own. But AI is not the only way to use this system. We have customers that import with AI, but then make their changes manually. So that was a really quick example of Userdoc, an overview. Hope it was good and interesting, and let's speak soon.